The hidden wound behind your need to save others. There is something no one tells you, but it may be guiding your life without you realizing it. Often, the need to save others is not love. It's an unhealed wound that makes you believe that if you save someone, you are worth something. Think about this. How many times have you been with someone who clearly didn't want to change, who only took from you, who manipulated you, who hurt you, but you insisted on staying? Why? Because there was a voice inside you that said, if I manage to help this person heal, then I am enough. Then everything I suffered was worth it. And there's the trap. What seems like an act of nobility is, in reality, often an unconscious way of seeking validation. You're not helping the other person. You're trying to fix something broken inside you. Carl Jung spoke of this as projection. You project your wound onto the other and search in them for the opportunity to do what you couldn't do when you were a child. Because deep down, what you're trying to save is not that person. It's your younger version, who no one came to rescue. Let me tell you something. A woman falls in love with a man who is emotionally unstable, aggressive, sometimes affectionate, but unpredictable. Her friends tell her to leave him. Her family warns her. She knows it's wrong, but she can't let go because she sees in him a broken child. Someone who just needs love. Someone who her love can heal, but every attempt to save him sinks her further. The relationship becomes a spiral of exhaustion, anxiety, tears, and dependence. What's going on here? She's not in love with that man. She's in love with the possibility of redemption he represents in her mind. If she manages to heal him, then her story of abandonment, of not being seen, of not being enough, becomes a success story. But that never happens, because you can't use another person as an emotional substitute for your own childhood. You can't turn a romantic relationship into a therapeutic battlefield. And you definitely can't sacrifice yourself over and over, hoping that it will give you value. Now think about your own story. How many times have you stayed longer than necessary with someone who only drained you? How many times have you justified the unjustifiable by saying, but they've suffered so much? How many times have you confused your desire to be needed with true love? That need to save, to be the healer, to be the light in the other's darkness, often arises from the pain of not having been chosen, of not having been enough for your own parents, of having grown up feeling you had to do something special to be loved. And now, without realizing it, you repeat this pattern again and again with people who only know how to destroy you. But there's something even deeper. When you live from that wound, you attract exactly those who need to be saved. Not because the universe is cruel, but because unconsciously you are trying to repeat the same scenario again and again until you see it, until you wake up, until you decide that this time you won't betray yourself, that this time you will choose yourself. Carl Jung said, "What you don't make conscious manifests in your life as fate." That's why, if you don't heal this wound at its roots, you'll keep attracting connections that drain you, that emotionally bleed you out, and you'll end up more empty than when you started. And worst of all, you'll get used to it. You'll get used to love hurting, to love being difficult, to love meaning giving more than you should, and you'll normalize it until you believe that's love, but it's not. That's the echo of your wound resonating in every relationship you choose. So what happens when you decide to stop saving those who only came to destroy you? That's when the true act of love begins, not toward the other, but toward you. When you recognize that you don't have to stay where there's no reciprocity. When you understand that you're not a bad person for letting go of someone who doesn't want to change. When you accept that you don't have the responsibility to carry someone else's emotional pain, because saving others at the expense of your own mental health is not noble, it's self-abandonment, and your soul is already too tired of that constant betrayal. This point is just the beginning, but you're already seeing things more clearly, right? In the next one, I'll talk to you about the invisible cycle that binds you to those destructive people, even though you know they're hurting you. And when you hear it, something in you will change forever. So get ready to like, subscribe if you haven't already, and think about that person you know would benefit from this video and share it with them. 2. The invisible cycle that keeps you bound to those who hurt you. When you ask yourself why you stay, why you can't let go, why it's so hard to leave someone who clearly doesn't do you any good, you are only seeing the surface of the problem. But beneath that, there's an invisible cycle, one that repeats like a curse, and Carl Jung would have called it the unconscious pattern. This cycle doesn't start with the person who breaks you today. It started long ago in your childhood, in your first emotional bond, in that relationship with your parents where you learned, without anyone saying it, that love was conditional, that you had to earn it, that it wasn't enough to just be you. What happens? When someone enters your life and gives you crumbs, your mind doesn't reject it. Your mind recognizes it because that's what you learned was normal. You hold on to the intermittent promise of affection, the empty apologies, the gestures that briefly make up for the damage, and you call it love, but it's not. What you're living is a traumatic cycle. This cycle has 4 phases, and if you identify with them, it's because you're trapped. Idealization. Someone enters your life with an intense, almost magical connection, making you feel special, needed, as if finally someone truly sees you. Devaluation. Slowly, they begin to make you feel less. Subtle criticisms, painful absences, coldness, confusing behaviors. You feel that you are no longer enough, but you blame yourself. Emotional break. They hurt you, ignore you, emotionally destroy you. They may leave or stay and treat you with contempt. You feel devastated, empty, but still hope that they will return to phase 1. Re-engagement. Suddenly that person returns, seeks you out, tells you what you needed to hear, gives you hope, and with a broken soul, you accept it, and everything starts over. This is the cycle that binds you, that makes you feel addicted to the affection of someone who only consumes you. Because you're not hooked on the person, you're hooked on the relief you feel when they stop hurting you, the temporary relief when they choose you again, even if only for a while. And that, my dear, is not love. It's unresolved trauma. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." What happens when you live trapped in this cycle? You lose your identity. You start adapting so much to the other person's emotions that you stop listening to your own. You become an emotional mirror, and that's devastating, because you no longer know who you are without that chaos. Your peace disturbs you, silence terrifies you. Why? Because you became accustomed to conflict as a form of connection. Let me tell you a story. If this is already opening your eyes, imagine what's coming. The last sign will be the most fundamental. I remind you to hit your like now and subscribe, as all light thresholds do. Keep listening. She was 33 years old and said, "When he's not here, I feel like I'm drowning. But when he's here, I feel like he's destroying me." That phrase said it all. She wasn't in love. She was codependent, trapped in the cycle. She knew he wasn't going to change, but she kept coming back. Because deep down, what she wanted wasn't his love. It was his approval. She wanted to feel enough for someone who would never give it to her. And that's the deepest wound. Wanting to be chosen by someone who was never capable of truly choosing you. If you don't cut this cycle, you'll end up destroying yourself little by little. And every time you save someone like this, you're the one who loses the most. Because saving someone who came to destroy you is allowing your soul to crack slowly until there's nothing left to hold on to. This point is a warning, a brutal call to your awareness, because until you see it, you'll keep repeating it with different people. But the pain will be the same, and you deserve more. In the next point, I'll talk about one of the most dangerous beliefs that keep you justifying the unjustifiable. A belief that sounds like, "I understand them, they've been through so much," and keeps you trapped in a destructive relationship while you emotionally drain yourself. And when you hear that point, you'll see something you may not have wanted to see, but that you need to see now. 3. Understanding is not loving. The trap of justifying who breaks you. There's a silent trap that destroys many emotionally intelligent people. You, who are reflective, who connect with the pain of others, who have that immense ability to empathize with others. This trap is called understanding the other as a justification for staying there, even though you're sinking. And the worst part is that it seems like a virtue. It seems like love, but it's not. You've heard this phrase 1,000 times. I understand them, and with that, you swallow their absence, their coldness, their hurtful words, their disproportionate reactions, their emotional outbursts. With that, you justify everything. But what you don't see is that behind "I understand" often hides your fear of setting boundaries, your fear of letting go. Yes, they might have deep wounds. They may have gone through things that marked them. Their story may be full of trauma. But since when is their pain more valid than yours? Because while you're striving to understand them, who understands you? If this is already starting to open your eyes, imagine what's coming next. The final sign will be the most fundamental one. I remind you to hit the like button right now and subscribe like every threshold of light would. Keep listening. While you analyze every gesture of theirs, searching for the hidden trauma behind their indifference, who is analyzing your silent suffering every night? Who picks up the pieces of your self-esteem when once again they chose you in the end? When they had nothing else to do? Let me put it this way. Understanding the other is a noble act as long as it doesn't destroy you in the process. Carl Jung spoke about the danger of projecting our shadows onto others, but also about the risk of not integrating them within ourselves. When you justify the unjustifiable, when you accept a relationship that tears you apart in the name of understanding, what you're doing without realizing it is projecting onto that person your wound of not feeling enough, your desperate need for validation, believing that if you manage to heal them, then you're worth something, then you deserve love. But that's not love. That's abandonment disguised as compassion. Let me tell you a quick story. She was a therapist, had all the tools to see clearly, and yet was trapped in a relationship with a man who was slowly extinguishing her. I understand. I know he's struggling with his trauma, she told me, but every time he withdrew, she fell apart. Every time he reacted with passive aggression, she searched within herself for what she had done wrong. Until one day, exhausted, she looked in the mirror and asked herself, when am I going to understand myself? That was her turning point, because that's what happens. Sooner or later, there comes a point where your soul screams so loudly that you can no longer ignore it. The moment when your body starts to get sick from what your mind is silencing, when you realize that you've spent years trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved while you're drowning. And there's a big truth you need to internalize. You can understand their pain, yes, but you're not obligated to live it with them. You can be empathetic without turning yourself into a martyr. You can be compassionate without being their anchor. Because when you stay with someone who isn't looking at themselves, who isn't working on themselves, who doesn't want to change, what you're doing is becoming the tool for their avoidance. You're telling them with your presence, don't worry, I'll handle it for both of us. And in the long run, that's violence against yourself. So the question is, how many times have you called understanding what was really fear? How many times have you said, I understand them, when what you really meant was, I'm afraid to let go? I'll repeat it for you. Understanding is not love. True love doesn't need extreme sacrifices to survive. It doesn't need you to betray yourself. It doesn't need you to silence yourself. And here, I'll leave you with a harsh but liberating affirmation. No matter how much you understand them, no matter how many traumas they have, no matter how difficult their life has been, if they don't treat you with respect, they have no place in yours. That's how clear it is. And if you're doubting, if part of you feels like you can't let go yet, ask yourself this question. What would happen if you understood yourself with the same depth that you understand him? What would happen if you used that energy? Not to justify him, but to rebuild yourself, because the day you do that, something will change forever. And this brings us precisely to the next point. One of the biggest romantic myths that sustains destructive relationships is the childish and dangerous idea that love can fix everything, and it's time to break that illusion. In the next point, I'll tell you why love isn't always enough, and how this belief keeps you trapped in cycles of unnecessary suffering. Love is not always enough, the lie that keeps you stuck. There's a phrase that has ruined more lives than it has saved. With love, anything is possible. It's romantic, popular, sounds hopeful, but it's a trap disguised as faith. Because no, love cannot do everything. Not when it's one-sided, not when it's immature, and certainly not when it's breaking you from the inside. You can love with all your soul. You can give yourself authentically, with an open heart, without masks, without games. You can do what's right, speak calmly, give your best. But if the other person is not willing to meet you at that same level of emotional commitment, then love is not enough. And this is something that many people don't want to accept, because accepting it means facing a brutal reality. That loving someone doesn't guarantee that they will love you the way you need, that love can hurt, and that it might not be enough. But the most brutal thing is what comes next, when, despite knowing this, you stay, because you believe that if you love stronger, deeper, more intensely, he will wake up, he will change, he will see what you see, he will realize your worth. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work that way. And I'm not saying this from a judgmental place, I'm saying it because I've seen this pattern repeat again and again. Women and men too, who empty themselves trying to hold on to relationships that are already broken just because they feel that their love is their responsibility. That if they leave, if they let go, it's because they didn't love enough. But do you know what truly means failing yourself? Staying where you are not chosen. If this is already opening your eyes, imagine what's coming. The last sign will be the most important. I remind you to like this now and subscribe like every threshold of light does. Keep listening. What Carl Jung would call self-betrayal. Jung talked about the process of individuation, which is the process of becoming who we really are. And one of the biggest obstacles to this process is holding on to someone who does not resonate with your truth, with your essence, with your purpose. Because every time you put their well-being above yours, you are distorting yourself. You are moving away from yourself. Real love does not require you to cancel yourself. It doesn't ask you to sacrifice your peace to hold on to the chaos of the other. Mature love adds, it doesn't subtract. It expands you. It doesn't shrink you. It propels you forward. It doesn't stop you. And if the relationship you have today makes you feel small, insecure, guilty for wanting more, then no matter how much you love him, it's not the right place. And it must be said clearly, staying in a relationship that drains you just because you love them is a form of self-abandonment. But no one tells you that this way, right? Instead, they applaud you for your endurance. They tell you that love heals everything. The crises are part of the journey. They reward you for staying there, even when your soul is exhausted. Even when every time they ignore you, you stay silent, even when they are not willing to move an inch. But you've walked miles to hold up the unbearable. Do you realize? This is not love, this is emotional addiction. And here lies an uncomfortable truth. Love is not always enough. Sometimes it simply is no longer viable. Learning to leave, even when you feel love, is one of the bravest things you can do for yourself. Not because you don't love them, but because you love yourself more. Because you understand that your well-being cannot be conditioned by someone who doesn't even know how to take care of themselves. Because you recognize that some loves come to teach you, but not to stay. And that doesn't make you cold, selfish, or heartless. It makes you conscious. So if you're there waiting for them to change, to wake up, to understand what they have with you, I want you to ask yourself, how much longer are you willing to give without receiving? And what would happen if you invested that energy in yourself? Love is always enough, But respecting yourself is. Taking care of yourself is. Letting go of what harms you, even if you love it, is. Because your soul did not come into this world to beg for love. It came to remind you who you are, even when everyone else has forgotten. And this brings us to the last point. Because when you finally break through the self-deception, with the romantic myth that has kept you stuck, what follows is brutally beautiful. Recovering your power. In point 5, I will tell you what happens when you finally stop trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved and finally start saving yourself. 5. The moment you stop saving someone who doesn't want to be saved, you start saving yourself. There is a moment that changes everything. It's not a scream or dramatic breakup, not a fight or a final conversation. It's something silent, almost imperceptible from the outside. But inside you, it's a revolution. That moment when you realize that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. That second of clarity when you understand that no matter how much love, patience, compassion, and sacrifice you put on the table, if the other person is not willing to look at themselves, grow, and take responsibility for their darkness, there's nothing else to do. And I'm not telling you this as a theory. This is something that thousands of people live through. People who have broken themselves trying to rescue someone emotionally absent, spiritually disconnected, or emotionally abusive. People who gave everything, who put themselves last to prioritize the chaos of others, who confused their empathy with obligation. But one day comes when you can no longer keep ignoring the obvious. Your love will not save them. Your presence will not heal their trauma. Your loyalty will not fill their void. And when this hits you like a bucket of cold water, at first it hurts because you feel like you failed, that your love wasn't enough, that maybe if you had done more, waited more, or given in more, things would have been different. But no, that thought doesn't come from your essence. It comes from your wound. The wound of the child who thought that if she behaved well, if she was useful, if she was good, she would be loved, chosen, not abandoned. And in adulthood, you keep repeating that pattern. But when you decide to cut the cycle, not from anger, but from clarity, it's as if suddenly everything reorganizes within you. You stop living with that anxiety of, what if I leave and they change? What if I lose them and they realize? What if I regret it? If this is already making you open your eyes, imagine what's coming. The last sign will be the most fundamental. I remind you to like and subscribe now as a threshold of light. Keep listening, because you understand that letting go is not a loss. It's a liberation and something even deeper. You understand that when you stop saving the other, you start saving yourself. You save the version of yourself that abandoned you to please others. You save your energy from continuing to drain in someone who doesn't know what to do with it. You save your dignity, your clarity, your vision. You save your soul from living trapped in an emotional prison disguised as love. Carl Jung said it clearly. Meeting yourself is one of the most unpleasant experiences a person can have because it involves seeing what you don't want to see, accepting that you prolonged your suffering for an illusion, recognizing that your need to save the other was a way to avoid looking at yourself. But that encounter, no matter how uncomfortable, is what begins your real healing. You are no longer waiting for someone to value you. You are no longer begging for emotional crumbs. You are no longer giving more to feel enough. Now you are with yourself, holding yourself, validating yourself, being the home you once sought in someone else. And when you do this, the world changes, not because the external reality transforms immediately, but because you stop tolerating what you once called love. Empty promises no longer seduce you. You no longer get hooked on what doesn't align. You no longer want to fix anyone because you understand that everyone has their own path. And if someone doesn't want to walk with you from consciousness, it's better to do it alone. Not from hate, but from self-love. Because that is what truly breaks the cycle of pain, honoring yourself. And when you honor yourself, something magical happens. You attract people who also honor themselves, who don't want you to save them, who don't need you to bleed for them, who are ready to walk by your side, not on top of you. So yes, stopping to save someone who came to destroy you is a form of rebirth. And that rebirth begins when you stop seeking love outside and begin to build it within yourself. So if today you're at that point, if you feel like you're still trying to save someone who doesn't change, who doesn't progress, who doesn't see you, maybe it's time for you to ask yourself, who is saving you? And if the answer is no one, then it's time for that person to be you. Because you deserve more than just surviving a relationship. You deserve to heal. You deserve to love yourself so much that no one can break you again. Conclusion: it's time to make it clear. You didn't come to this world to beg for love. You're not here to stay where you're not valued, nor to save someone who feeds off your emotional destruction. You came to remind yourself of your power, your truth, your light. And every time you prioritize yourself, every time you say enough to what drains you, every time you choose your peace over someone else's chaos, you are coming back to yourself. Stopping saving someone who only came to destroy you is not cruelty, it's self-love. It's the bravest act of your life, because you've already understood that you don't need to be anyone's heroine, that you don't have to carry others' wounds to feel valuable, that your energy is sacred, and you won't keep giving it to someone who doesn't even know what to do with it. Today, I want you to carry this tattooed in your soul. You can't heal in the same place that breaks you. You can't grow where you're constantly withering. True love does not hurt, does not confuse, does not require you to betray yourself. And if this resonated with you, if at any point in this video you saw your story reflected, then I want you to write this powerful statement in the comments. I choose myself, even if that means letting go of what I loved the most. This phrase is not just a sentence, it's a pact with yourself. It's your sign that you're ready to break the cycle, to move forward, to be the woman who no longer minimizes herself, who no longer adapts to pain, who no longer tolerates the intolerable. You are here for more, and today you're finally remembering that. If you made it this far, it's because you're ready to change your life. But this is just the beginning. Watch the next video that will leave you speechless and help you delve even deeper into this transformational journey. Click now, subscribe, and activate notifications so you don't miss content that can truly change the way you see life. See you in the next one.